In the farthest reaches of the known stars, beyond the jeweled belts of nebulae and the echoing ruins of forgotten moons, there drifts a world without dawn. A planet that does not shimmer, that does not sing. It turns in silence, wrapped in endless black dunes that devour starlight itself. The old star maps call it Namaru, though no voyager who ever sought it was known to return. The sands of Namaru are unlike any found across the galaxies. Each grain is as fine as ash and darker than a raven's wing, a dust that swallows all light. Even the stars themselves seem to dim when gazed upon from its horizon. The silence there is not of peace. It is the silence of something holding its breath. Through the vast emptiness between suns came a traveler. He had no name that survived the shifting of tongues, no clan that called him home. He was wrapped in the garb of 1,000 worlds, cloak torn by sand, eyes veiled against solar glare. Those who once met him on distant worlds called him the Wanderer, for he never stayed long enough to be known. His ship, an ancient vessel of mirrored hulls, descended through the black clouds of Namaru like a tear falling through ink. The air trembled with magnetized storms, static whispering like the murmurs of ghosts. When his ship finally landed upon the dunes, its metal groaned as though mourning the light it lost. And as the Wanderer stepped out, the world beneath him gave no shadow, for there was no light left to cast one. He stood upon the Starless Dune, a sea of shifting night. The air was dry, heavy with forgotten heat, and in every direction lay nothing but horizons upon horizons of black dust. No mountain, no moon, no sound. Only a faint hum like the pulse of something dreaming beneath the surface. He knelt, scooping the sand in his gloved hand. It felt cold, impossibly cold. And when he lifted it toward his visor's faint glow, the grains seemed to drink the light, leaving his fingers invisible. He whispered, so the stories were true. The stories, old tales from the dust archives of the Orion archives, spoke of a civilization that once trapped light. They said its kings and sages built vaults of crystal beneath the dunes, hoarding the very breath of the stars. They believed that by holding light captive they could master the dawn. But light, like truth, was never meant to be caged. The Wanderer walked, guided only by the faint hum that echoed through the ground. His boots left no mark, the sand swallowed every trace. In the distance, mirages shimmered, not of heat, but of memory. Cities of glass rising and falling with the rhythm of a phantom tide. After days, or perhaps weeks, for time dissolved in that lightless realm, he came upon a ridge where the dunes curved into a perfect spiral. At its center stood an obelisk, half-buried, etched with sigils that gleamed faintly like dying embers. He brushed away the sand, revealing the carved words in a forgotten tongue. And the wind, though no wind had blown before, began to whisper through the grooves. "We held the dawn in our hands," said the whisper, "and so the night came to claim us." The obelisk cracked as if sighing, and a sudden tremor shuddered through the ground. The dune beneath him split like an eyelid opening, revealing a pit of darkness deeper than space. The Wanderer stumbled but steadied himself, peering into the chasm. From within, the faint hum rose into a chorus of echoes, like voices calling from eternity. He descended, each step sinking deeper into a tunnel of glass and sand. The walls shimmered faintly, reflecting not his shape, but 1,000 silhouettes, each one walking beside him, mimicking his every move. When he touched the wall, the figures dissolved into ripples of starlight that vanished into the stone. He realized then he was walking through the memory of light. At last, he emerged into a cavern vast as a city, its ceilings arched high and smooth, carved from obsidian that glimmered with faint traces of imprisoned glow. Crystal pillars jutted from the floor, fractured and hollow, as though they had once held something brilliant, something alive. And in the center, a dais rose like an altar, crowned with a crystal half buried in black sand. The crystal pulsed faintly, a flicker of light trapped within, like a dying heart. The Wanderer approached it, his visor reflecting that tiny glow, the only light in all the world. He felt it beating, slow and heavy, as if each pulse echoed through his bones. Then a voice spoke, not aloud but within the silence itself. "Who walks the dark where no light dares remain?" The Wanderer froze. "A traveler," he replied softly. "There are no travelers here," the voice answered. "Only those who return to what they once were." "Then I return," he said, bowing his head. "For all travelers must someday return to dust." A shadow stirred across the cavern walls. From the blackness between the pillars, a shape emerged. Neither man nor beast, but a being woven from shadow and memory. Its form shifted like smoke caught in still air, eyes glimmering faintly with the same dim pulse as the crystal. It spoke again, each word trembling through the stone. Long have I kept the vault. Long have I guarded the light from those who would consume it. Why do you seek what must never shine again? The wanderer felt the question strike his soul. He looked upon the being and saw in its form the echoes of faces, thousands of them, merging and fading, the last echo of a civilization that had tried to imprison the sun. He said, I seek not to take, but to understand. The being moved closer, circling him like a tide of night. Understanding is a hunger deeper than greed, it said. The light beneath these sands was not stolen from the stars. It was ours. The flame of thought, the spark of pride. We caged it to prove we could outshine the heavens, and so we fell into shadow. The wanderer gazed into the crystal. He saw visions, towers of light piercing the clouds, rivers of brilliance flowing through cities of glass. Then he saw them dim, one by one, until only darkness remained. The people of Namaru had vanished, leaving only this guardian, this echo of remorse. The being's voice softened, almost human. Now you, who walk from beyond the worlds, will you free what is left of our light, or bury it forever? The wanderer did not answer. Not yet. He turned his gaze upward, through the cavern's ceiling, imagining the endless dunes above, swallowing the stars. He felt the weight of countless ages pressing down, the burden of those who sought to command the dawn. And he whispered, Perhaps light must learn to die before it can be reborn. The guardian watched him in silence. Then, slowly, it bowed. A gesture both regal and broken. Then let the sands judge your truth, traveler. The vaults below will open only to one who bears both night and dawn within his heart. And with that, the ground trembled again. The cavern's walls rippled like water, and before the wanderer could speak, the sand beneath him gave way. He fell, spinning through spirals of glowing dust and broken memories, deeper into the heart of the world. The hum grew louder. No longer a whisper, but a song. A song of light caged in sorrow, a song of a world that forgot how to shine. And as he fell, the wanderer closed his eyes, surrendering to the darkness that awaited below. The wanderer awoke to stillness. The fall had ended, though he could not say how. The air around him shimmered faintly, filled with motes of dim blue light that drifted like slow snow. He rose to his feet, finding himself standing upon a vast plain of black glass, smooth as water, endless as the night itself. Above him, the cavern's roof curved like the inside of a hollowed star. Rivers of light flowed through veins in the ceiling, not bright, but pale and trembling, like memories half remembered. They poured down into crystalline channels that ran beneath the surface of the glass. Each pulse of that light hummed with sorrow, as though the world itself were sighing. He began to walk. The plain stretched on in every direction, yet beneath his boots, faint patterns glowed. Spirals, sigils, fragments of ancient constellations. Each step awoke another glimmer, as though the world recognized him. He followed the glowing lines until they gathered into a path, leading him toward a distant shape, rising out of the darkness. As he drew closer, the shape revealed itself, a gate of stone taller than mountains, carved in the likeness of two faces gazing skyward. Between their brows blazed a faint light, sealed behind translucent crystal. The wanderer reached out, placing his palm upon it, and the light stirred like something alive. A voice rose from deep within the stone, echoing through his chest more than his ears. Light was our covenant, it said. We drew it from the stars and bound it to our will. But light obeys no master, and its fury devoured all that we were. Now we sleep beneath the sands we made, waiting for one who walks both shadow and flame. The gate trembled. A beam of pale gold light cut through the air, forming a bridge across the darkness beyond. The wanderer stepped onto it, feeling warmth for the first time since he had landed on Namaru. He walked the bridge slowly, his reflection shimmering in the black glass beneath him, his face half in light and half in void. Beyond the gate lay a labyrinth of vaults. They rose in tiers like amphitheaters, each chamber filled with crystals suspended in air, each crystal holding a faint spark within. The sparks flickered like dying stars, casting a faint shimmer on the obsidian walls. He realized then, these were the remnants of 1,000 souls, fragments of the civilization that had once ruled the sands. He approached the nearest crystal. Within it he saw a figure, not a body, but a memory, replaying itself in silence. A woman standing before a crowd, holding a sphere of light above her palms. The crowd bowed, their faces aglow with reverence and fear. The woman released the sphere, and the light rose to the heavens, then turned dark. The wanderer moved from crystal to crystal, watching fragments of their fall, the building of their towers, the weaving of their light nets, the moment when their pride became their undoing. Each memory ended the same way, with silence and sand swallowing all. The vaults were not merely tombs, they were prisons of memory. A whisper drifted through the chambers. Not the voice of the guardian. Something older, fainter, like the memory of a god. It spoke from every crystal at once, a chorus of countless voices layered into one. We sought to make the dawn eternal. We captured the breath of suns, but in chasing light we forgot its shadow, and so the shadow consumed us. Now we linger between day and night, neither living nor gone. The wanderer felt the words settle upon him like dust. He looked up, and for a moment he thought he saw the stars, yet there were none. Only the reflection of the crystals above him, trembling as if stirred by wind. He spoke softly into the air, though no mouth would hear it. Perhaps what you trapped was never light at all. Perhaps it was the echo of yourselves, frozen at the moment of your fall. If so, then to free you, one must set darkness free as well. The ground beneath him shifted. The vaults trembled, and a deep resonance filled the air, vibrating through bone and thought. The crystals began to rotate, slowly, aligning into patterns that formed the shape of a vast star. At its center, the same crystal he had seen before, the heart of the vault, pulsed again. The wanderer felt drawn toward it. He stepped into the center of the chamber, where the crystal hovered above a pool of black sand. The sand rippled with faint light, and from its depths rose the guardian once more. Its form flickered, weaker now, as though the centuries weighed upon its very essence. You walk deeper than any mortal has dared, it said, its voice softer now. The vaults remember your presence, for you carry what we lost. A light unbound by greed, yet touched by shadow. What will you do, traveler, when the light begs to be free? The wanderer gazed at the crystal, its glow pressing against the glass like a heartbeat yearning to escape. He reached out, but stopped, sensing the weight of choice. If he shattered it, the light might spill across the world again, rekindling the stars above. Or it might consume all that remained, erasing both darkness and memory. He closed his eyes and placed his hand upon the crystal. It felt warm, alive, ancient, and within it he heard the echo of countless prayers. Not for power, not for victory, but for forgiveness. He whispered, not to the guardian, but to the forgotten ones within. You will not be forgotten. Your light will not be caged again, but neither will your shadow be denied. The crystal pulsed violently. The chamber roared as rivers of light erupted from the walls, coursing through the air in spirals. The crystals shattered one by one, releasing beams that twined like serpents of gold and black. The guardian let out a sound that was both pain and relief, the cry of something ancient being unbound. The light surged upward, piercing the cavern's roof and exploding into the dunes above. For the first time in ages, the surface of Namaru shimmered. The black sands reflected not starlight, but the memory of it, soft, mournful, beautiful. The wanderer shielded his eyes, though no true brightness burned. When the silence returned, he stood alone once more. The guardian's form had faded, leaving only a wisp of shadow coiling through the air. It brushed against his chest like a sigh, leaving behind a faint symbol upon his heart, a circle half in light, half in dark. He understood then that the guardian had not vanished. It had become part of him. He looked upward, where the vault's ceiling had split open. Through the fissure, a faint shimmer of stars peeked through the dusted sky. Not blazing, not full, but there, where once there had been none. He smiled faintly, feeling the pulse of the crystal's light beating in rhythm with his own. The dunes above called to him now. He would ascend once more, not as a wanderer lost in night, but as one who carried its wisdom. The journey was not done. For beyond the horizon something waited, the dawn that was not yet born. He turned toward the rising wind, his cloak billowing with particles of black sand that now glowed faintly from within. Each grain shimmered like a small ember of remembrance. And as he walked toward the slope that would lead him upward, The voice of the world whispered once more from beneath his feet. The balance is not found in light or shadow. It is found in the space between, where both learn to breathe. The wanderer walked on, each step carrying him closer to the surface. The light followed him through the tunnels, threading around his form like a living current. And far above, the first glimmer of dawn, not true, but remembered, waited for him to arrive. The ascent was long and dreamlike. The tunnels twisted in patterns that defied sense, spiraling through caverns veiled in shifting mist. Sometimes the path shone faintly, guiding him upward like a vein of light through the body of a sleeping world. Sometimes it vanished altogether, leaving him to climb through silence and unseen air. He did not know how many days passed, nor if days even existed here. His body no longer felt hunger or fatigue, only a steady rhythm pulsing through his chest, the echo of the crystal's heart. Each beat was both his and not his, the rhythm of something older flowing through him. He felt himself becoming more shadow than flesh, more thought than memory. When he finally emerged from the tunnels, the sky above was no longer void. A faint pale shimmer had spread across the horizon, as though dawn were trying to remember itself. The dunes glowed softly, no longer devouring light, but reflecting it in muted shades of silver. And upon the highest ridge stood a figure waiting, cloaked in wind and dust. The wanderer approached, and the figure raised its head. It was a woman, or what remained of one. Her body was woven of sand and light, her face half-formed, stout, shifting with every gust. In her eyes glimmered the same faint radiance as the vault's heart. She spoke, her voice a soft ripple through the air. "You have touched the flame beneath the world. You carry it now." He answered without sound, his thoughts spilling like water into the stillness. "I freed it, but the light does not belong to me. It must find its place." She nodded slowly, the grains of her form drifting apart and rejoining. "Then you must learn what place it seeks." She gestured toward the horizon, where the dunes curved into a vast plain stretching endlessly eastward. There, far in the distance, a storm of darkness churned. Not wind, not sand, but shadow itself. It rolled like an ocean tide, swallowing everything it touched, devouring even the new glimmers of light. The woman's gaze followed it, sorrow deep in her shifting face. "That is the heart of our ruin," she said. "The hunger that began when we first caged the dawn. It has no form, no mercy. It feeds on light and leaves only silence. You carry within you the last spark it desires." The wanderer looked toward the black storm. Its surface rippled with faces, countless and fleeting, whispering as they dissolved. He felt the pulse within his chest respond, faster now, as though the light itself knew the danger that awaited. He turned back to the woman, but she was fading, her form scattering like sand in wind. When the shadow meets you, remember, light cannot fight darkness. It must know it. Only then will the dawn remember how to rise. Her last words lingered in the air like dust suspended in twilight. Then she was gone, leaving only her footprints, which the sands soon swallowed whole. The wanderer tightened his cloak and began walking toward the storm. The journey was slow, though the horizon seemed to draw nearer with every step. The dunes around him whispered like sleeping voices, and the light within them dimmed as he passed. Above, the faint shimmer of stars flickered uncertainly, as though the heavens themselves trembled. He felt the world watching him, not in malice, but in expectation. By the time he reached the edge of the storm, all light had fled. The air was thick, heavy, humming with unseen power. The ground beneath him cracked, exhaling tendrils of shadow that clung to his boots. He stepped forward, and the world vanished. He was no longer on the sands. He stood within a vast void, the storm's heart, a place where up and down had no meaning. Shadows floated like fragments of thought drifting through an ocean of black. And at the center, pulsing faintly, was something that felt alive. It was not a creature, nor a form. It was a wound, a tear in existence itself, radiating sorrow. Through it poured memories of the fallen, the voices of a civilization that had once believed it could command light. The wanderer felt their pain, their regret, their endless longing to undo what could never be undone. He stepped closer, the light within his chest flaring softly. The wound reacted, the shadows recoiling, forming around him in rippling patterns. They began to whisper in 1,000 overlapping tones, each word striking like an echo of despair. "Why did you wake us? Why did you return the light? We were safe in forgetting. He walked through the tide of voices, his every movement stirring waves of shadow that licked at his form. "You were not safe," he answered in thought. "You were lost. Light and darkness were never meant to sleep apart." His words rippled outward, glowing faintly, dissolving some of the whispering shapes into mist. The wound pulsed again, faster now, the air trembling with its breath. From its center rose something immense, a figure formed entirely of shadow, towering and formless, its eyes twin voids devouring all reflection. It was the hunger itself, born from their pride, sustained by centuries of fear. It gazed upon him, and the dunes trembled beyond sight. "You carry what I was made to consume," the shadow thundered through the void. "Give it, and I will let you vanish in peace." The wanderer steadied himself, feeling the pulse of light in his heart surge. It burned, not in pain, but in defiance. He raised his head, and his voice was steady as stone. "If I give it, there will be no dawn left to rise. If I keep it, neither of us will survive unchanged. So we will learn what balance means." The shadow roared, its form expanding, engulfing everything. The light within the wanderer blazed, answering in resonance. For a moment, the void became pure white and pure black intertwined, spiraling around each other like twin stars collapsing into one. He felt himself dissolve, not dying but unmaking. Within that storm of unbeing, he saw the truth. The light he carried was not power, not flame. It was understanding, the memory of every soul that had fallen beneath the dunes. The shadow was not evil. It was the reflection of their fear, their guilt, their need to hide from what they had done. He reached out with both hands and embraced it. The collision was silent. Light and dark merged, not as enemies, but as halves of one forgotten whole. The storm stilled, its vast body unraveling into a rain of golden black dust that fell gently through the void. The wound in the world began to close, its sorrow dissolving into peace. The wanderer stood once more upon the sands. The storm had vanished. Above him, the sky shimmered faintly, a pale twilight, neither night nor day. He looked at his hands and saw that they glowed faintly, veins of silver and shadow intertwined beneath the skin. In the distance, the dunes shimmered, reflecting a horizon that no longer feared dawn. He took a breath, and the air tasted of both endings and beginnings. He understood now what the Guardian had meant. The light was not meant to conquer darkness. It was meant to remember it and be made whole by it. He turned his eyes toward the horizon, where the faint curve of a sun, long forgotten, began to form behind the veil of dust. Not bright, but real. A new dawn, slow and hesitant, breaking across the starless dune, and the wanderer, who had walked through shadow and sorrow, stood to witness its first light. He whispered to the wind that carried across the dunes, "Let the world remember, not our power, but our peace." And far beneath the sands, where once the vaults of crystal had slept, the hum of the world softened into a heartbeat. Not of pain, not of grief, but of balance restored. The light of the newborn dawn spread slowly across the dunes. It was not the fierce blaze of day, but a tender radiance that shimmered like breath upon glass. The black sands reflected it softly, turning shades of silver and deep bronze, as though remembering color after an eternity of absence. The air, once still and heavy, now trembled with faint warmth. The wanderer stood upon a ridge and watched as the horizon stretched into infinity. He could feel the balance pulsing through the world, a quiet rhythm matching the beat within his chest. Every grain of sand seemed alive, whispering the same thought, that light and darkness were no longer enemies, but partners in the song of existence. He closed his eyes and listened to the silence, for the silence itself had changed. The storm had passed. The shadow was gone, but in its place remained an emptiness, gentle and vast, awaiting what would come next. The wanderer knew that the world would need time, centuries perhaps, to heal from the weight of its long night. He began to walk once more, though now each step left behind a faint trail of luminescence. Where his feet touched, the black sands shimmered with traces of starlight, not consuming it but holding it gently, like memory held in cupped hands. The wind carried his cloak outward, scattering particles of light and shade together into the sky. He wondered if this was what creation had felt like, in its first trembling breath. As he walked, shapes began to emerge in the distance. Not illusions, but remnants, ruins of towers that once gleamed brighter than any sun. They stood half buried in the dunes, their mirrored faces now cracked, their beauty softened by time. Between them flowed rivers of molten glass, cooling slowly beneath the new dawn. He approached one of the fallen towers. Within its hollow frame, light moved like water, pooling into the broken mosaics along the floor. The symbols carved there, the same ones he had seen in the vaults, now glowed faintly, reforming themselves into new constellations. He knelt, tracing one with his fingers, and felt the hum of the planet beneath his touch. The hum spoke not in words, but in knowing. It told him that the light he had freed would seep into the sands, spreading through the crust of the world, awakening what had long slept. It would rise in storms and rain, in wind and stone. The people who once were might never return, but their wisdom would linger, carried by every grain of the black dunes. He felt a calm settle over him, deep and wide as the desert sky. The purpose that had drawn him here was fulfilled, yet his journey was not over. The balance he carried could not remain bound to this place alone. It had to travel beyond, to the worlds that still hoarded their own light and blindness. He looked upward, and the sky reflected him, one part shadow, one part flame. A shape shimmered before him, rising from the golden dust, the Guardian. Its form was smaller now, human-sized, its features gentler, its edges softened by light. No longer the Warden of Sorrow, it was now an echo of peace. It bowed its head slightly, and the Wanderer inclined his in return. "You have done what even we could not," said the presence in thought rather than sound. "You remembered that light cannot exist without the grace of dark. You are no longer a guest of Namaru. You are part of its song." The Wanderer felt the truth of it within his chest. He touched the mark over his heart, the circle half in shadow, half in light, and saw it pulse softly, fading with each beat. The power was leaving him, returning to the sands where it belonged. He did not resist. He let it flow outward, sinking into the earth, dispersing into every corner of the planet like a final breath. The Guardian smiled, a quiet, infinite smile. Then it too dissolved, its form scattering into countless motes that joined the dawn. The wind caught them, lifting them high into the sky where they became a faint new constellation, a ring of light surrounding a single starless point. The sky had remembered the darkness that gave it meaning. The Wanderer stood alone once more. He looked to the horizon where the sun was rising, pale, uncertain, yet impossibly beautiful. Its light reached him, soft against his face, warming the dust upon his skin. For the first time, he felt the true weight of the journey he had carried across stars, not the burden of distance, but the burden of understanding. He turned toward the wreck of his ship, half buried beneath the dunes. The mirrored hull reflected the faint dawn, no longer devoured by shadow but bathed in a muted glow. He brushed the sand from its surface and felt the hum of power stirring once again. The ship, like the world itself, was ready to rise. He paused before entering, gazing once more across the endless desert. What had once been a wasteland of black silence was now alive with quiet color. Faint blooms of luminescent dust rose in the air, like stars being born from the soil. The horizon shimmered with promise, not of conquest, but of renewal. He whispered to the wind that danced around him, "The light belongs to none, the darkness belongs to all. And between them, we find our way." The ship lifted gently, engines stirring the sands into spirals of silver and ash. As it rose higher, the desert spread below like a sea of shifting constellations. The fractures in the surface glowed faintly, lines of gold and black weaving together into a tapestry of unity. The Wanderer watched in silence as Namaru turned beneath him, its heart beating once more. Beyond the planet's edge, the stars awaited, bright, patient, ancient. He looked upon them differently now. He saw not light scattered across the void, but stories burning in balance, each one carrying both brilliance and shadow within. He understood that no light truly dies, it only changes form. The ship broke through the last layer of atmosphere. Behind him, the starless dune gleamed one final time before fading into the infinite night. Ahead, the vast ocean of space opened, filled with destinations unseen, worlds unknown. The Wanderer took the helm and set his course toward the faintest point of light on the horizon. As the engines hummed and the stars drifted past, a soft voice, the echo of Namaru itself, lingered in his mind. "Go forth, bearer of balance. Let every world you touch remember that dawn is born from the patience of night." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the endless starlight. And as the ship vanished into the dark, a single streak of golden light followed behind. Neither sun nor flame, but the promise of both. The universe, watching in silence, seemed to breathe once more. The sands of Namaru slept beneath him, but this time their dreams were gentle. No longer starless, no longer bound, only endless and at peace.